Hey all, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm Darren, I'm your host, and today we have another great guest, Mr. Brett Gallaway from the SCA, which is the state cook-off competition. He is the president and founder, and we're going to have a great discussion with Brett talking about everything steak. I'll be right back.
Smoking, grilling, getting hot and hotter, sous vide and chilling from fire and water.
Hey all, I want to introduce you to a company I just started working with, Fresh Jack's Organic Spices out of Jacksonville, Florida. They're a small, family-run company that's fast-growing. I've tried a bunch of their different seasoning blends and spices, and I can tell you they're all fresh, all organic. None of them contain artificial flavors or sweeteners. None of them have anti-caking agents or preservatives. They all taste like they were just made for you yesterday. Check them out, guys. They're on Amazon in the link below. They have different sample packs, different blends. Like I said, they also have the individual seasonings and spices as well. Fresh Jack's Organic Spices. Check them out, guys. I love them. Welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm Darren, I'm your host, and today we got a really great guest, Mr. Brett Gallaway. He is one of the founders and the president of the Steak Cook-Off Association, otherwise known as the SCA. Welcome, Brett, and let's find out a little bit about yourself here.
Well, thanks for having me on, first of all. I'm just a cooker. We started a little cook team back in 2009 and had a blast competing, and ended up starting this Steak Cook-Off Association, and it's just been a fun ride for the last 6 years.
Well, where are you from, and what do you do is this your full-time gig now, or?
Yeah, I'm from the Dallas-Fort Worth area here in Texas, and this is my full-time job. I travel the world running events. I think I was on the road 48 weekends last year. I think I was in Australia 4 times, Canada, Japan. I mean, I've been a little bit everywhere, but I'm meeting the greatest people in the world. It's a blast.
So what did you do before you got involved in you started these steak cook-offs?
I was an old restaurant manager by trade. I did restaurant management, and I like the thrill of, running the restaurant. And it's not if something goes wrong, it's when. And so Ken Phillips is the co-founder. He was also in restaurants, and we met at a recruiting company. I had went there to work before I started SCA, and we ended up working together at this place and just became friends, and we started competing together. And then SCA started a little after.
So you guys, were you working like for the same restaurant chain, or were you working for a different company, or how'd that work?
We worked for the same recruiting company. That's
Okay.
where we met. He had came there after he went to college.
So you recruited people to work in restaurants and all that?
Oh yeah. How would you like to work 70 hours and never see your family, get paid $40,000 and have no benefits? Where do I sign up? I hated every minute of it.
I actually, my first, when I was 16, I got in the restaurant business to start. I started washing dishes and worked my way up to the, short order cook line. I worked for, like the Denny's type restaurants, the breakfast, lunch, dinner, family type stuff, and TGI Fridays, those kind of places. No white tablecloth restaurants, but I spent the first, probably 6 or 8 years of my working life in restaurants, and most of it cooking, but I kind of got, I got the taste of that. You don't get very much pay, you work crazy hours, and you're running around a lot, and especially on a Sunday morning when you work at a breakfast place, and the church crowd comes in, and you got 500 tickets up on the wheel, and everybody wants it out now. So it's a lot of pressure, and it's not very good reward. It's not like they see on Chopped, or some of these cooking shows on TV.
That's for sure. Well, the good news is it prepared me for what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So
I've talked to a lot of people that that are chefs that went to culinary school, worked in restaurants, and now they do something else. in the field. They rep for, sous vide machines or companies, vacuum sealer companies or something like that, where they go around to the conferences and stuff and do demo cooks and show people how to use equipment. And they say, that's much better than, than what I was doing, in a kitchen for sure.
Absolutely.
But at least they have the experience. So you started out doing barbecue cook-offs with Ken. Is that what you said?
Yeah, we started with steak cook-offs. We a bunch of buddies from church got together and decided, let's go try one of these events. I was watching the Texas Steak Cook-Off with my wife one day, and I said I could do that. And I think she had a moment of weakness because I had never heard these words from her before. But she said, "You can do anything." I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Let me download this application before she changed her mind." So I downloaded the application and we entered that first cook-off and just had a blast. I invited Ken to come out because he's a great cook at home, and he's a very competitive person as well. So we got Ken and a couple guys from church and just had a great time. Didn't do well, but we had a great time.
So I'm not really familiar with. I've never done competitive barbecue or anything like that, or cooking in general. Were the steak cook-offs just like kind of regional events, or they one-off events that other organizations put on before you guys kind of had the idea to have this organization?
Yeah, before we started, there was 9 steak cook-offs in the country. That was just 6.5 years ago. There was 9 of them in the whole country, but none of them were sanctioned. They were all ran differently, and Ken and I won all but one of those cook-offs while we were out competing, and they were in 4 or 5 states, but there just wasn't very many of them. And we loved doing them. I got a little bit. It was like a 3-month season, so I got bored and I started doing competitive barbecue. And then we had some success in competitive barbecue also, and had a great time. But the love was in steak. The steak cook-offs are a lot. I enjoy them.
So with the steak, when you started doing them, they weren't connected like would have an association like the Kansas City Barbecue Society or any kind of governing type body like that. So
no, they were all in sanction. There were no set rules. They were different everywhere you went.
Now, were they all? Yeah, were all different. Did they like all have different kinds of steak they cooked and different kind of rules and all that, or?
Well, one of them had T-bones. The majority were ribeye steaks. I went to one time and they couldn't afford ribeye. They told us at the cooks meeting, so we got to cook sirloins, which we had never cooked a sirloin, or I hadn't before, but ended up getting 3rd place, I think, that day. But there was just no standards. There was no rules, and there wasn't a governing body for it.
So when you guys sat down and said, okay, well, I see an opportunity here, how long did it take you guys from writing it down on a napkin and to putting it into fruition?
Well, it was a hard decision because I don't believe in cooking in your own organization. So I didn't want to quit competing. So I talked to Ken, and Ken and I decided, well, let's run one event just as we'll just be promoters of a cook-off, and we're going to test some things that we think could be done a little better as far as cookers go with the judging. And so we ran that one event. We had 42 teams there, which is above our average right now. We're at 38, but we had 42 that day. The event went great. The feedback was great, and it took us probably another 6 months before we decided we're going to stop competing and we'll just start running SCA.
How did you get the word out about your competition? Did you just people you knew or you competed with before, and just, hey, tell everybody, all your friends and all that?
We knew a lot of the promoters just from competing around, and they were actually very sharing with us to give us some of their techniques of how they ran the judging, so we'd have better insight into it. And they actually helped us with our first event. And we also went to the National Barbecue Conference and met a lot of people there. So our first event, it went off pretty well.
Yeah. Did you, make money? Did you lose money? Was it a break even type event, or was it just something you did, as a charity type thing? Or
no, that's a great question. The first event it ended up being a break even. Even with the number of teams we had a very large payout. I guess I didn't realize as we were going through it, you got to sell a lot of steak dinners to pay out $2,500 for a first place without sponsors. So we spent way too much on trophies. We the payouts were high, which is great. I mean, if we could get sponsors or our promoters, their payouts would be higher too. But yeah, it was a learning experience for us because we came from the cook side and we were trying to work on the judge side, but it also gave us insight to the promoter side, which is, kind of where it let us down.
Yeah, because you don't just need to attract teams; you need to attract people to come and buy the steak dinners, like you said. The
Yeah.
people to come and eat them.
Yeah, the majority of the events they do not do a steak dinner now. There's just a lot of labor involved with doing that, and another layer that first-time promoters or a lot of these promoters just can't handle, or they're not
Right.
equipped to handle. So in order to replicate this and do more events on a larger scale, we had to drop that piece of the event at all but a couple.
So it's not like I've been to a few barbecue competitions. I've just never competed in them, so I know that that like the day before, like the Friday night is the time where people are coming in and they're selling. They're just cooking and selling stuff. They may have little side competitions going on with like the the best hot dogs or something, whatever the fun stuff. They're not doing the main ribs and brisket and all that until Saturday. But
Right.
that it seems like that that's where the teams get to make a little bit of that money back that they're putting in, and the operation itself does. They get to sell a lot of that barbecue. We just had one not too long ago here in Lakeland. It was a huge event. I mean, actually, I think we went there on Friday, and there had to have been 5,000-6,000 people in there eating.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really big, and so I knew that all the teams were just slammed busy, selling, eating barbecue, not competition barbecue. There's two different types, but it seemed like that's a big part of those competitions to try to generate cash, to get it, keep those things going and generate your purses and prizes and trophies and all that stuff, and paying to put it on besides the sponsorships. So
yeah, it's another layer. I mean, some of those events like Lakeland you're talking about, they run a great event, and there's just a lot of layers to it. It takes a lot of people to pull it off. And, honestly, a lot of our events are in little small towns, small town America. And, if they have 3 people that can help with the event, I feel pretty lucky sometimes. But it's a small group there's a lot of, we have Masons groups that put it together. There's, VFW halls. It could be the Chamber of Commerce. It's just different at every event.
Now, do most of the places that do that, are they looking just like to just raise some money for charity events and stuff like that? Is that how it works?
Yeah, the majority of our events are for a charity of some sort. You do get some cities that'll put them on, and really they want to put butts in beds. They want people sleeping in the hotels, spending money on gas, buying groceries at some of those events. But a lot of them, the majority are for charity. They're trying to raise money for different groups.
Now, do you tie in a lot of times with some barbecue competitions that are going on too, as well, or like be around the same time or a couple days before or after?
About a quarter of our events are associated with a barbecue cook-off, whether that be an FBA, an MBN, a KCBS. Man, I'm running out of acronyms, but there's different organizations around the world that we work with, and generally, if we're in conjunction with a barbecue, we'll run a Friday night event. We think we have our unique field of Fridays. We bring a little energy. We have our awards that night. So you got 3 to 10 people that are gonna win a prize and win some money that night. And then they get bragging rights going into the weekend with their buddies that are cooking barbecue.
Right. Yeah. And I talked to, Malcolm Reed. I've talked to a couple other, Harry Sue, and I've seen Cosmo talk about, I know he won at one time, the national, but those guys seem to just love the events more, like what Malcolm told me. It's just like what barbecue competitions used to be like, they're more friendly, more, people just go to have a good time. It's not all about the money and all that. It's just more fun for them. And it's a one-day event, so they don't mind, going there for a Friday night or a Saturday and just being able to hang out, cook, bull crap with the people that they love and talk to, and then hang out and go back home. So
Well, I think that's a lot of it. Guys like that 1 day format, they can come out, you can hang out with your buddies. It's not a lot of pressure. I mean, you're at the grill 6 to 10 minutes usually cooking a steak. I mean, there's guys that have different processes. I mean, we got some guys trying to sous vide out there as well, and I know you're into that. All I can say about that is there's some dang good filters on Instagram right now because I watch you guys practice and the steaks they post look amazing. And I go to an event and, I will see I can tell you the steaks that come through that are sous vide because they're grayish.
Yeah.
So I think if somebody nails the color, they could really do well, but they haven't done it yet. Instagram's killing them.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know what's the time limit on, is it like a 2-hour time limit on the cook?
On a Friday night, you're usually going to get 2.5 hours with the steak before you turn it in, and then there's a half-hour window, so it doesn't give you a lot of time. And during the weekend, you usually got about 4.5 hours with it, which is still pretty tight for a sous vide.
Yeah, and it all depends. You got to really know what you're doing. You can't just toss it in and not know what you're doing on the sous vide side because even though I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years, there's still things I learn every day because sous vide is not just a one-off. It's not just good for steaks doing a certain thing. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. Even with steaks, a ribeye, I do more, even for medium rare, I do it at a higher temperature because there's so much fat and connective tissue in it compared to a New York strip or a filet that you got to take that into consideration. You want some of that fat to render in the sous vide that normally would render on a grill while you're cooking it over open flames. So you really you don't want to cook it at 131 degrees. You want to cook it at 134 degrees to get that to render. So those are the kind of nuances you really got to start getting into, especially if you're going to go to competition with it. But that's one of the good things I want to talk about those, because you do allow sous vide in the competition, like where barbecue competitions, they won't allow it. You got to cook it on the, smoker or grill. You can't do anything with the sous vide at all.
Well, I mean, we're any fire or heat source. If you think you can beat 40 grown men and women on a George Foreman, God bless you, bring it out. And if you want a sous vide, go ahead. We've had a guy I was in the Netherlands, and a guy dug a hole, built a fire, laid a steak on a shovel, and cooked on a shovel and got a 5th place.
Wow.
If you can cook, you can cook. But yeah, we want to be inclusive rather than exclusive. Why exclude electricity? Why exclude gas? That's what guys are used to cooking on, or what they want to cook on. And, I don't know that there's an advantage to any aspect of cooking. I've seen guys win on almost all of them.
Yeah. And that's my whole philosophy, even with, I know there's a lot of traditionalists when you get into certain things like barbecue, I got to put mustard on it. I got to, to slather before I put my, a lot of that stuff is, my whole philosophy is there's a million different ways to cook a pork butt, not just smoking it on a grill. I mean, I can make it Latin style. I can make it sliced. I can make it, pull. I can do 100 different ways. And even now what sous vide brings into it is like, I can make a medium rare brisket that's still tender and falling apart, or beef ribs that are medium rare and tender. So, I mean, you can make something that you couldn't make with either one of the cooking methods by themselves. So that's what I try to get people, it's not going to replace, using a smoker or just, and smokers aren't going to replace using a sous vide. There's certain things you can cook and do different ways when you use different cooking methods together. And I think when you get too locked in or too, traditional and say, it's got to be, you got to do it exactly this way. And with barbecue, it's funny is because they really don't, because they, when you watch Johnny Trigg make his ribs, it's like, God, really they used parquet, and 6 different kinds of, honey and agave and 12 rubs and, all injecting it with all kinds of phosphates and whatever else they want to put in there. I mean, they doctor the meat so much, and it's like, how in the world, I know you're just going for that one bite to try to be different, but it's still, they even say, Malcolm even said, there's eating barbecue and there's competition barbecue. You can't eat the competition barbecue a whole plate of it. So
when I competed in barbecue, I didn't eat my brisket. My competition brisket tasted like pot roast. It smelled like pot roast. It won, but it wasn't brisket, man. I didn't like it at all. It was horrible.
And they're the, like I said, the barbecue guys are the first to admit. Even Harry Sue, he's like, yeah, I don't cook for my family that way because it's totally different. I watched him do chicken thighs, and the amount of time he took just trimming them and taking the skin off, scraping the fat off the back, putting it back on with transglutamate, making it look so pretty. And then, it's like, wow, you're not going to do that cooking for your family or anything. So, but I like it when, at least, they do let you do different things. And like I said, I like the fact that you guys allow pretty much, cook it any way you want. You're up against all these other guys. So, if you win, you win. If you don't, go get a PK grill and a set of grill grates.
Well, that's not going to guarantee you win.
No, I know.
For sure. But yeah, it's, what's interesting is Meathead does have a little influence out, and he has a lot of influence in the cooking world. But, some of his posts on there, 2 years ago or last year it was big sous vide was kind of his push. And, the year before, I think he talked about reverse sear. Hello. He talked about reverse sear. So a lot of things he puts out there, guys are actually, they're going out there and trying. And, they're all great techniques. The guy knows he's sharp.
Yeah. And like I said, he's one of the guys like me that understands that there's many different ways to cook things, and it's all can be delicious. It doesn't have to be one. They're not fighting each other. Cooking methods are cooking methods. They're not battling each other. It's not like, Chevy versus Ford or whatever,
Yeah.
And that's what I try to pull some of these people off of their high horses and just, oh man, you're boiling your meat. It's like, dude, come on. If you want to boil your ribs, go ahead. They're not going to come out great, but I mean, there's other ways you can cook that it's still going to be good. I mean, people fry chicken, people smoke chicken. You're going to tell me you don't like fried chicken? I mean, it's two different cooking methods, and it produces two different things. So I like food and I like eating food. So I mean, I like trying different things and cooking different ways. So, but yes, I'm really tempted to try a steak cook-off event. I think there's one coming up here close to me, and I think it's over in Frostproof or something.
There is one in Frostproof coming up.
Like in March. Is it March or?
I believe it's March.
And you got a judge training. I was thinking about taking the judges training too.
The judge training is very valuable if you're a cooker. I mean, it's great if you want to judge. Obviously, you can judge anywhere in the world at an SCA event, but as a cooker, to know the process, whether it's SCA, KCBS, whatever organization, just knowing that judging process inside and out, and it's taught by people that are running events every weekend. And that class actually is Ken Phillips, the co-founder of SCA, is teaching the class. So talk about hearing it straight from the horse's mouth. I mean, we wrote the book on it, the judging process all along. So it wouldn't be anybody better to take a class from than Ken being there.
How long did it take you guys to develop that type of, all the rules and what you look for as far as the judges are concerned?
You ever slammed your finger in a drawer? That's how we learned. No.
Yeah.
What we did was, we had a base of the rules from those other events, and we eliminated a couple and added a couple. But since our first event, our process has changed very slightly. It was our third event we made the big change, and it's really been very similar since, just minor tweaks along the way. So it took us, that first year, after about 4 or 5 events, we had it set the way we thought we wanted it. And every year it changes just slightly based on cook suggestions, judges' suggestions. Now this year we're to the point where we're very proud of the system. I think it works great. We think it's very fair. And, we hardly had any changes this year.
Well, that's great. Well, we're going to take a couple minute break here and for an ad, and I will be right back with Brett Gallaway from the SCA Steak Cook-Off Association. We'll be right back. Hey, all, this is Darren, and I want to take a minute to talk to you about Masterclass. I just signed up for Masterclass, and I can tell you what, it's well worth it. Masterclass is where you can learn how to cook from Gordon Ramsay. You can learn how to sous vide from Thomas Keller. You can learn how to make Texas barbecue from Aaron Franklin himself. All these classes are available on Masterclass, plus many more. Masterclass has great video content, interactive assignments, social interaction with the Masterclass community, all for just one fee. You can either buy each individual class for $90 each, or you can sign up for the annual pass, which gives you access to all their classes for just $180. And that's what I signed up for. Check it out, guys. Masterclass has some of the best online training you can find. Check it out, guys, in the link below. Masterclass, amazing. Now on to the show. All right, we're back with Brett, and let's talk a little bit about, since you guys started it, we just talked about how you put the rules together. Since you first started those first few events, has it been more like a snowball going down a mountain as far as building, or was it slow to take off, or?
Well, we went to that National Barbecue Association conference. We met people like Harry Sue there, and Linda Orison and Brad Orison from the Shed, and Mark Lambert. Malcolm Reed was there as well, Mike Mills up north, and we met a lot of the bigger names in the barbecue world, and they kind of took us under their wing and helped us grow Stick Cook-Offs. There was 9 of them when we went to that conference, and at the end of the first year, we had 19 events, 19 sanctioned Stick Cook-Offs, and man, we thought we're killing it, had 19 of them. Well, then the next year it went to 47 events.
Wow.
And then we went 19, 80, or 47, 87, 116, 232, and last year was 392.
Now, where did you get all the resources to you said that's rapid growth. I mean, and that takes a lot of people, a lot of time, a lot of resources to put those things on, I'm sure.
Well, the good news is Ken and I came from a restaurant management background, but then we also got into recruiting. So we've done a ton of interviews with potential managers, and you can kind of smell a smoke screen sometimes. And what we've found is it's not the people that come to you, hey, I want to be a rep for your organization. It's identifying those, a judge that you have, man, they're sharp, and hey, they may have had a restaurant background, or they were in management. And that's really the key to the people that run our events with us. They are usually they've been in the business world, or they're old restaurant managers that, it's not if something goes wrong in restaurants, it's when, so you got to be on your toes, and, and running an event, you got to plan for success for these events. And we've been lucky. We've really had some great people that have came along with us. And, honestly, some of those guys are just as excited about growing it as we are. So it's a great thing. We're thankful.
So you have local reps in each market then, correct?
Yeah, we've got 52 reps around the world right now. I think there's 7 in Europe. Australia's got 6, I believe. We just have 3 more in New Zealand. The rest are in the United States, and then we also have some in Japan.
Now, do they do any kind of sales, like trying to go out and drum up events, or are they strictly just setting up the events when, do you have enough business where people are just coming to you at all times saying, hey, we want to put an event on?
The majority of them, they're coming to us now for events. We're actually turning down some events right now, just busy weekends. Remember, we had 19 the first year?
Yeah.
We have a weekend coming up with 21 events.
And just that one weekend.
In one weekend, and they're, it's spread between 3 or 4 countries.
Wow.
So it takes an army, and we've got these guys that are willing and helping us to grow this, and they're having as much fun as we are, we think. At least that's what they say.
Now, do you have guys in other countries as well working for you, or is it strictly they're here and you send them over to other countries? There's
the people in Australia, Europe, and New Zealand. They live there. They're from there. Harry Havinga, he is our we actually have a partner in Europe, and he helps us grow Europe. So that's his position there. The rest of them are judges that go out and run an event that weekend, and they may talk to different promoters that are doing a barbecue cook-off, or or from the local VFW or whatever it may be, about events. But really, they're out there running those events on a weekend.
Now, do your judge classes always get filled up pretty quick?
They're different everywhere we go. It depends on the market. We're trying to be careful not to oversaturate a market. But if we have an event and we're short judges, we know we need something in that area. The teams count on those judges. They count on the consistency of certified judges. So it's, Florida's got, has had as many judges as any state out there. But unfortunately, sometimes we're still short in Florida at certain events. So we're having 2 more classes there coming up real soon. We've got another one coming in Texas, one coming in Texas. We're trying to build Georgia. Usually, when we start a new market, like we're going to Connecticut, we're going to Maryland. So when we start a new market, we'll do a class there to help. It helps the promoter to have certified judges. It helps to bring in the teams, and it helps support their event. If I do a class and I have a certain amount, then I don't have to charge them for travel, and it covers the travel, so it saves them on their bottom line, which is less teams they need for their break even on their event and raise money for their charity.
Now, how many of these events do you personally go to yourself now?
I went to 47 last year. Or I was gone 47 weekends and 9 weeks last year during the week. But we also work connected. Ace Hardware is our national sponsor. So we go to the Ace Hardware show twice a year. I've got that coming up shortly. I travel internationally to make sure, just training and development of reps in new areas. So I travel quite a bit, but my wife, our children are in college now. And so I'm able to bring my wife sometimes with me, which really helps. And we're getting paid to see the world. It's great. I may see Sydney, Australia for 4 hours before my event, but I get to see Sydney, Australia for 4 hours.
Right.
And then when we start a new market, really we're singing for our supper. I'm doing a judge class, I'm doing a cooking class, and it's not really work when you're having fun. I don't think.
Right. And it's something that you guys put together and you built it and it's yours. So it's always, that's the most satisfying thing, I think, is when you're able to put something together like this, watch it grow. It's like a child pretty much, it's like watching your kids grow up.
Yeah. You're going to skin some knees along the way, but you're absolutely
definitely.
right. We've had a couple missteps here and there along the way. And I think long as you own up to those and learn from them, and, I think it's made us better, the organization, and, going from from 0 to right now we're on projection. It's 461 as of today for the year, 462. Yeah. I got another one, but I think we're going to end up over 500 this year. So there's been some learning along the way, and it's good. The things Ken and I thought we were good at, we weren't as good at, and some things we thought we were weak, we're a little better at, and it's caused us to, both reflect on ourselves to help get better, so we can, we got 50 guys that are working with us that we got to try to lead in the right direction. Plus, 10,000 cookers.
Yeah. And like you said, though, with that rapid growth, you have to do it, and you got to do it now. It's not like, we can, when we get there, we get there. It's like, now we got another event coming up and we want to make sure the things that we learned on that last one that we screwed up, that we don't do it on the next one. But, that's a good thing, though, is that you had that many to, practice with and get go through. And now these ones where you're really cranking out, 500 is amazing after 6 years of just starting from, let's put this one together and see what happens. I mean, that's just amazing that you guys have grown that fast. And I've never heard anything bad about any of the competitions. For me, even some of the, the guys that have been doing barbecue competitions, they've never said, hey, they're okay, they're kind of hokey. They've always said they're great, they're fun. They're not as stressful, to them, because they stress out, when they're doing a regular barbecue competition for 3 days, and it costs them a lot of time, a lot of money, and they have fun doing it. But they, every one of I've talked to said they have a lot more fun at your events because they're not, that stress level is a lot lower and the fun level is a little higher, and they're looking forward to it more. And a lot of them have their kids, like Malcolm has his kid competing in it, and he says that's the for him, it's that's what makes it fun, is watch his kid cook, and win.
Yeah, well, my children grew up at barbecue cook-offs and steak cook-offs with us, so they would come out to the events and people knew them, and I thought it was a great place for them to learn a lot of things in life. And we have a lot of husband and wives that cook together. You see father, son, you see 3 generations, and those kiddos out there cooking. We actually just changed the rule this year that was our big rule change was if you're 13, you could compete in the adult steak division now.
Oh, wow.
It used to be 16, but we had some kids that were cooking with their parents, and people knew they were cooking, not the parents. But technically, the rule said, and like, let's just make it 13. They can cook, they can compete. They have to pick out their own steaks. They got to season them. They have to cook them. I mean, they're just like anybody else in the field. Which, hey, when they get walks and if you get a 13-year-old that gets a call and you've got 42 grown men there and women there,
Yeah.
they earn that call, they earn that walk. So it's great for them. And the more the kids learn, the better on the cooking end, that.
Right. That just goes to show you, anybody can win it as long as they do it right that one time,
Mm-hmm.
They could get lucky. But so let's take the look behind the curtain at the Wizard of Oz here and on the judging side. What can you tell me about what you guys look at as far as judging a steak?
All right, it's judged on 5 criteria. The first thing is appearance of the steak. How does it look? Appeal. When you look at that steak, you're going to give it a score of 5 to 10, 5 being lowest, 10 being the highest. Does it have to have grill marks? No. Grill Grates is one of our biggest sponsors, but it does not have to have grill marks. We've had somebody win turning a Grill Grate upside down. We've had a guy get a 5th place on a shovel. There's guys at sous vide. So guys have won in a cast iron skillet. I mean, it's just another technique of cooking, and it's not going to have the same lines that a Grill Grate may have, but it can look just as beautiful. So we're very careful to stress to the judges, if there are lines, they need to be consistent lines. But if they're not there, judge the steak. How appetizing does it look when you look at it? I find a steak out of a cast iron skillet with 3 colors of caramelization on it beautiful.
Yeah, so, that's one of the questions is that when you give them those guidelines, it's more of a personal preference. If somebody likes grill marks, then they're going to judge a grill mark steak maybe higher than one that just has been cooked in a cast iron skillet, because that's their personal preference. So
sure, and all but one of our standards or categories is personal preference. The appearance is one of them. The next one is the doneness of the steak. Doneness has a standard. We have a chart that it's got 5 different steaks on it. You score 7 to 10. The one in the middle is a 10. If they hit that color, it's a 10. And it's pretty easy to find. Guys have it all over the internet. We show it at the cooks meeting. Honestly, if you walk into Outback Steakhouse and look at their doneness chart, might be the same exact one. Because
how'd that happen?
I was on Google one night, and on page 6, I was just looking through. I was trying to find a perfect setup, and there's 5 steaks on a fork, and I said, that's it. And I sent it to Ken, and we talked, said, hey, this is the way we're going to go. And one of our reps out of Florida, David Haskett, he was in Outback and sent me a picture, and he said, does this look familiar? So, and somebody just posted it recently. I laughed about it. But it was just a stock photo that we found online.
So the doneness, and then what's the other criteria?
Taste. I don't know what you like taste wise. You could like steaks a little spicy, a little sweet. I mean, there's variations around the country of flavor profiles. So do you enjoy the taste of that steak? And that one has a little decimal, so it's got 0.9, so it can go up to 10.9. So it's very slightly a little bit higher in value. Taste is. Taste, it's doneness, appearance, taste, texture. Texture of the steak. This is one that cooks have trouble with sometimes. I hear, man, this is the tenderest steak I've ever seen. It's just falling apart. Well, there's so many, as you know, there's so many things you can do to a steak to change the texture of that steak. There's guys doing salt brines, so you can marinate the steak. You can rub papaya on it and mango on it. I mean, there's so many different things. Buttermilk. You can change the texture of that steak in a bad way sometimes. Right. You can overdo or underdo anything. And I think sometimes maybe people are overdoing that. But a big thing for the cookers on the texture, we always taste whatever part is in the bottom of the steak, or in the bottom of the box towards the judge. So placement in the box was one of the changes this year. We allow them to put it in strategically in the box so the judge gets the best bite of steak, in their opinion, in the cook's opinion. So I think that plays a lot into it. And the biggest part of texture is steak selection. We let them actually pick their own steaks. We line them up. We give them, pull out a Crown Royal bag full of poker chips. They pick a chip, and that's how they select their steaks. It's a one, say we have 25, we go 1 through 25, and then we reverse the line 25 through 1 to pick their steaks. There's not every steak's created equally, and sometimes you can't see what's underneath the meat there. You know.
Now, it's not like barbecue competition where it's how they place it in the box is judged, right? It's just strictly how the meat itself looks. So they don't have to put a lot of greenery in there and make it just sit in the box just right. So when they open the box, they go, ooh.
Yeah. Now we see enough putting greens on the weekends. There's enough grass out there, and these cows are raised on grass. They don't need garnish in a box for a steak. It's a steak competition. It's about the meat. We allow them to judge or to garnish an ancillary box, one of our side categories, and that's really to hold things in position. They actually, if it's chicken wings, they will pull the chicken wing out, put it on their tray, and judge the appearance of the chicken wing. It doesn't matter if there's a perfect putting green underneath it or if there's mac and cheese under it. They're judging that chicken wing, not the box.
Exactly. Well, that's, I think that's probably the fairest you can do, is because, the things you want to do is, like you said, texture, taste, and doneness. Those are the things that are the most important when you're eating a steak, right?
Yep. And then our last one is overall impression. How do you feel about the steak? Now, to judge those 4 characteristics, how do you feel? Unless you gave it a perfect 10 all the way down, you're probably going to give it a 9. If you gave them 9s all the way down, it's probably a 9. If you gave them, 8s, it's probably an 8. There are times where that after you judge them, because in our process, you've got 30 seconds to judge that steak, period, each judge. If we don't get from judge 1 to judge 5 in under 3 minutes, we see an oxidation of the meat.
Right.
And judge 5 will see a different doneness color than judge 1. So it's a quick process. We intentionally keep it that way so the doneness doesn't change. But your overall impression can be a little different. Sometimes flavor can build on you. You're like, man, I want to change the score, but you can't. We want to keep your scores as they are. So you can adjust on the bottom, give them an extra point, or if all of a sudden your mouth's on fire and when you first tasted it wasn't, or you've got a bitter aftertaste. That happens sometimes. If you gave them 9s all the way down, they may end up with an 8. Your last impression was it was a bitter steak, or it was toxic. Right. It just depends. Yeah. But normally 9 out of 10 times it falls in line.
Now, that's what I was going to ask you. You've been doing this quite a while now, and you've seen hundreds and hundreds and thousands of steaks judged. How often does it sway too much from the first judge to the last judge as far as scores? I mean, do you see a big mixture, or are they usually consistent through the judges? I mean, or is there just like hills and valleys of one gives them an 8, one gives them a 10, another one gives them a 7? I mean, do you see a lot of that?
I'm very cognizant of the judging because I'm in there and I want to make sure judging's fair. And I ran an event last weekend in Houston, and I watched doneness specifically that weekend. And the scores were within 1 point. The judges were on doneness between judge 1 and 5. And it may be one of the judges was a little lower on the doneness, but it was within 1 point, which that was very, very accurate. Now, come taste, you'll see some variation on taste. They either like it or some judges don't care for that flavor profile. And, what's interesting is guys are out there posting everything they're using, everything they're doing. And if you think people aren't watching your pictures, you've lost your mind. I mean, there's guys that'll place things in pictures just to throw people off.
Right.
But the problem is what was once unique is now common. So that recipe that you're doing that you've taught 17 people to do, they're all cooking the same recipe. And, that one tasted just like that one, just like that one, just like that one. So, you got to keep a little secret under your hat and, something a little different, but you still want to be in that same range. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and it's still like when you get to like taste, though, like you said, you get so
Yeah.
much personal difference. Some guy might not
Mhm.
like garlic on a steak at all, and if somebody's using salt, pepper, and garlic and is heavy on the garlic, he'll give that a 6. Well, the guy who really likes garlic will go, man, that tasted really good, and he'll give it a 10 or a 9.
Yeah.
So I can understand how that can happen. So to me, it just really depends on a lot more things than just what you're cooking that day. It depends on what the judges like, and like you
Mhm.
said, what how that particular steak came out when you cooked it that particular way that day, because you could cook a steak 10 times 10 different days and have 10 different results. So once you start cooking a lot, just like with anything, you can get it where you're pretty close every single time. But
Well, there's guys out there that are very consistent. I mean, the Chuck Edwards won our points chase, Dan Judd's won our points chase, Terry Roan, the guys like those that they're very consistent. They've figured out that profile that seems to hit on, multiple levels, whatever the judge likes. So that it can be done, but it is personal preference on the judging a lot of times.
Yeah, and those guys are probably, they're not off on deep end on anything. They're not. Let me try something totally different. They're more like they've been doing this long enough where they can kind
Yeah.
of it gets kind of narrow, and you can get it to with a couple points, because most people like a little salt, pepper, and garlic, but they don't like too much of this, too much of that. And like I was talking to Michael from Grill Grates, it's like he even said, I wish that Grill Grates weren't as popular, because it would break up the break it up a little bit, because he sees everybody using them, and he likes to compete in those state competitions as well. Even though he works for Grill Grates, he said it's
Mhm.
great that people use them, but he'd like to see a little bit more variety. And I think that it just goes to show you that people love these competitions, even if they're reps for products. They just like
Yeah.
having a good time and going out there and doing it. And it's all about having the best steak win. It's not, you got to do it a certain way and have it taste just right. But you could win. You could come in, like you said, and be a newbie off the street. I've watched some
Mhm.
videos where a guy just signed up for his first steak competition, and he walks away as a winner. So, and it seems like it's a really great organization. I think I'm going to sign up for one here. So
Well, I know we're having a lot of fun with it, and it's exciting for us to watch it grow and help, be part of the growth of it. But it's really the teams out there that are spurring this along. The teams start telling each other about it, and it's that snowball you talked about. It's rolling downhill, and we're actually, if we're turning down some events this year just to make sure we can maintain the standards of where we are and continue to go farther later. But I mean, it doesn't make sense to take a couple of these events that, we've talked to it, just, you can't cannibalize one for the other. And, you know, big thing this year, adding another 100 events over last year is, well, that's 100 more events. We have to have 100, we have to have new teams,
yeah,
new judges, new teams. And that's what we're really focusing on. I'm actually heading to California 7 in the morning tomorrow. I'm teaching a state class, and it's not necessarily a competition class, but I'm out there teaching a class just for the backyard guy to get him interested in it, and then I mix in my competition things, and they realize, hey, I can do this. We had a guy take the class last time in California. He won the next day.
yeah. That's
So
one thing you can't control, is how many teams that are actually out there that want to sign up for these events. So, you can control the marketing and hiring reps in the local areas and getting sponsors, but you really can't control how many people put together teams and sign up for the events to come and compete. So
absolutely. And we're not the promoter of the events. We just run the judging, and we'll help coordinate the judging, and we have the website where everyone can sign up. We do some social media advertising for them, but as a promoter, it's their event. It's their job to go out and get teams, talk to their local fire department to do a challenge with the police department, things like that. There's a lot of different ways to bring people into your events, but thankfully, so far this year, our numbers are the same as last year as far as number of teams. And I just think with the economy and the cost of doing some other activities out there, paying $150, you're outside, you're not in front of an Xbox with a family, you have a chance of winning $1,000. You can't do that going to bowling.
Right.
unless you're really good, man. I was never good at bowling. And so, it's just a good family outdoor sport.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's you get to get outdoors and meet other people. Like I said, the
Mhm.
biggest thing that I've heard from some of the guys that love it is just having that camaraderie and meeting new people and comparing stuff you're cooking. And it's not as serious as some of the competition barbecue has got. Where you can't see my secrets. A lot of them share. You go, yeah, come on, man. Because
Yeah.
they know. Tomorrow they could be winning. The next day the other guy's winning. It doesn't. Just whatever comes out, they can put it out, and they're just there to have fun anyway. But how many of the teams? I'm sure it's a bigger percentage that you think are actually, already a barbecue competition team that will do a SCA competition when it comes into town.
What we're seeing is if we have an event, it's in conjunction with a KCBS event or an FBA event, you're going to pick up about 40% of the barbecue teams will jump on. Some of them either just don't want to cook a steak or are really just focused on that barbecue. But about 40% of those will jump on, and then the rest are just steak cookers. They just travel from event to event that just want to cook a steak. Throwing $1,000 out there to cook a barbecue on a weekend, that's a big expense for a lot of people's pocketbook. And ours at $150 entry fee, you're not out purchasing the meat. And sure, you got some rubs and stuff and charcoal, and your gas to get there. But usually, you can do you can do 3 events for the price of one barbecue right now.
Yeah.
So I think that helps.
And you're only burning one day. You're not there for,
Yeah.
3 days or 4 days. Some of those guys get there, a couple days earlier. So I know the one in Lakeland, they had guys sitting there probably for, 3 or 4 days before Friday, getting set up and ready to go and getting stuff prepped. So yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of the guys say. It's a 1-day event. I don't have to blow my whole weekend. And a lot of these guys, if they do, 20 events plus a year, I mean, that's a lot of big commitment. So a lot of guys like to take a break and go, yeah, let me just go do a steak event
Yeah.
and mix it up.
Well, it's helping us a little bit. I'm thankful for when they do mix us in. We're not trying to substitute for barbecue by any means. I used to have a 24-foot trailer, and I loved going out there. And I was thinking I was going to go out and try one out this year, cook a couple events, but I just don't have the time. And, I get a couple weekends off a year, and I take those and spend them with the wife. But it's a great event for the family, and not necessarily just steak guys or barbecue guys. It just everybody comes together.
Now, when does it get to a point where you say, okay, this is enough? We're only going to do this many. I can only do 1,000, in a year, and that's my breaking point.
I'm not sure. We haven't talked about that a whole lot, but I know we're already turning down some events this year. I don't want to outkick our coverage and have events and have them not be supported by teams. So that's already a focus of where we're at. And then our championship, last year we had 287 teams from, I think it was 11 countries in Fort Worth, Texas for the championship. To put on an event of that size, and we throw a big party. Thursday night, it's an international. Friday's a big awards dinner, and we've got a band out there, and it's about 1,200 people there. And then plus the cook-off on Sunday, it's an animal. But, this year is probably going to be 350 to 450 teams. So, we've decided 450 is going to be the cap on the championship probably going forward. And then, I don't know. We've talked about, will it have to go to regionals at some point? Will we have to have the Texas regional, the Alabama state championship, and then bring those guys together in one place and have a big championship? I'm not sure. We're still crossing bridges.
Well, those are good problems to have, though, right?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Not like you're not going, well, are we going to be able to throw an event this year? You're like, well, geez, what's going to put us to the breaking point of, where we're not losing the quality of the event. And like you said, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself to where your events aren't working. And then, then you start getting the downhill slide. You want to be able to keep doing it and have the quality of the competitors and the events itself. So, but it sounds like you guys are doing an awfully good job so far. And I'm so impressed with just 6 years at how fast you're growing, and how what a positive thing it seems to be with everybody I've talked to about it. So I'm looking forward to getting involved and trying a couple myself. So I'd rather start out with one of these than doing a barbecue competition. So
Absolutely. Go to one of these that's in conjunction with a barbecue, cook the steak, and then, hang out with the team, observe what the barbecue guys are doing, and that may lead you into that. That's how I got into barbecue. I was a
yeah,
steak guy, and I tried my first barbecue and I really enjoyed it. And we're almost entry level financially to the barbecue world. Not everyone can afford a 24-foot trailer and pit maker or whatever, and Jambo, whatever these guys are cooking on.
yeah,
You know,
$30,000 Jambo.
yeah, not everyone can afford that. It's a great pit. I'd love to have them. They're the Corvette of pits. But you know, everybody's got to grow. 87% of the country households either have a gas or electric or charcoal grill in their backyard. That's a lot of grills.
Yeah,
6% of the country has a smoker.
right,
So doing the numbers, there's a lot more opportunities for guys to get out there, and they already have the equipment necessary. All they're lacking is the confidence to get out there. And
exactly.
everybody's the king of the cul-de-sac. There's always one. You're probably the guy in your neighborhood, but
Yeah,
everybody's got that guy in the neighborhood. Oh man, Joe on the end, that guy can cook.
yeah. Yeah,
Joe's good.
I've got 4 grills out there, and I just recently
Hey,
bought a little PKTX. So
nice.
just looking at this, just looking at it going, hey, you know what? If I want to do this, I mean, I can understand. I can look at a grill and go, I know why these are popular, because I can see, how they cook, and how I can use it as a cooker, and what makes this great for steaks, because just the way it's designed, and it's not just a fluke.
Yeah, that's a proven steak machine right there, that the PK is.
Yeah,
There's other grills out there that are great. We're not tied to one grill. We've got, multiple grill sponsors this year. The guys, M Grill's make an amazing grill. Hasty Bake's make an amazing grill. I mean, you can go get a Weber kettle, which I've got like 6 of in my backyard.
right.
My desk at the office is 2 Weber kettles with a top on it. They're just a great grill, and
Right,
they're $100.
right.
So you don't have to have it, but certain grills are a little more versatile than others, as you could probably see on that PK that you just got.
Yeah, and I've had this conversation with Harry Sue, especially. It's not the cooker, it's the cook, because he won plenty of barbecue competitions on 2 Weber Smoky Mountains. So
Absolutely.
one of the guys that had the $30,000 Jambos were sucking wind, and he was walking away with the trophy and the check. So it's not what you have, but a lot of times what you have can help you. And it makes things a little easier, and if you use it right. So it's never going to be about the grill. It's going to be about what you can do with that grill, no matter what it is. So
What I think the grill adds for you is a little more consistency. It can extend that window of perfect doneness. It can extend different aspects of the cooking for you, but you can win on anything.
exactly.
You can cook.
Well, is there anything else you want to discuss before we wrap this up? I think we've touched about everything. Like I said, I'm really impressed with it, and I'm looking forward to get out there and doing a couple events myself.
Well, I hope to see you out there, and I do come to Florida. Ken Phillips will actually be down here. He's the founder, the co-founder of SCA. So he'll be down at that contest and Frostproof. And this definitely isn't just Ken and I that started this thing. It's the teams that have been out there and the reps, and we're just having fun with this thing. And we're going to ride this thing out, man. Ride as long as we can and try to make it better. I think we're better this year. We're more prepared than we've ever been. That being said, we're probably not prepared enough, and who knows, but we're definitely more prepared, and we're ready for a great season.
Yeah, definitely. You can't do something that grow this fast without having a good team behind you. I know you guys kind of got the ball rolling, but if you don't have people that you can trust and that are good at what they do, you're not going to be able to grow as fast as you have and get it to, keep growing. If you did it like one year, it was a fluke and it fell down the next year, I could understand. But you guys, in 6 years, you went from, 14 to, what, 600 or 500, you said? I mean, that's
Probably 5 this year.
amazing to me. So, well, thanks for being on, Brett. I really appreciate it. Look forward to having you on again some other time, maybe after I've competed in a couple of cook-offs, and I'll have you back on so I can discuss my experience with them for sure.
Yeah, that'll be great. And I appreciate you bringing me on tonight. Let me talk SCA. I'm sorry it took so long to get on the show.
I can understand how, because knowing how many cook-offs you got going on and how busy you are, I can understand it. But I just really appreciate you being on. I'm sure people will get a kick out of this interview as well, and get to look behind the scenes a little bit on how they started and where they're going. And a lot of people, still are unfamiliar with what the state cook-offs are, even though you've been growing really fast. One of the things is, like I said, it's just how simple they are. And the people that might have looked at getting into the barbecue competition, but have looked at it as a daunting task, might go, like you said, start out with cooking the steaks and then work over into the barbecue side. So.
Yep. Well, you taught me something tonight. Thank you on the sous vide, a little higher temperature on a ribeye because of the fat. So I appreciate the knowledge you shared, and it's great being on with somebody like you that really knows cooking. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, and it's like with anything, if you do it long enough and you start playing around with it, that's why I like to experiment. And then I have friends of mine that, do a lot more experimenting than I do, that I learn from too. So that's, I have a big Facebook group that, we have people that come in that are really, experienced at sous vide. Then we have some really experienced barbecue guys, and we try to meld those guys together and take a little bit from them and kind of put them together and say, well, and now I've learned a little bit more over here, a little bit more over here. Let's see how we can meld them. But so, yeah, there's definitely, an experimental factor going on. And I think that's, what competition guys love to do too. They, even though Johnny Trigg does his ribs a certain way, how many years did it take him to develop that, and experimenting and playing around to get that right, perfect, Johnny Trigg method, so
yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. But I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks again. And I look forward to having you on again sometime.
Sounds good. Have a great night. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks again for joining us here on the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I want to thank Brett Gallaway from the SCA state competitions for joining me and explaining all about those. Make sure you check out the link below to their website and get all the information you can on the state competitions. They're growing fast, and it's an awesome event. Also, check out the links below for Masterclass and Fresh Jack Seasonings. You can't get anything fresher than Fresh Jack Seasonings. And thanks again, and I will see you again on the next Fire and Water Cooking Podcast.